Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Usually when we think about a compass, there's this expectation of like objective direction.
Right, like basic physics.
Exactly. Basic physics. You hold it flat in the palm of your hand, the needle spins for a second and, points north.
It's reliable.
It's clean, it's comforting, really. We like knowing that no matter how lost we are out in the woods, the tools we use to navigate are true, but then you step into the world of human relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Into this realm of psychological magnetism.
Right.
And suddenly that compass is entirely broken.
Completely shattered.
We are holding a navigational device that is just deeply, deeply compromised.
It's a completely subjective north masquerading as objective reality.
Yes. It is the absolute definition of a rigged navigational system. Like, you think you're walking north. You think you're finally heading out of the woods towards something new, something healthy.
And then you look around.
And you look around and realize the compass is just guides you right back to the exact same tree you started at.
The exact same one.
Which brings us to the single, incredibly potent piece of source material for today's deep dive.
I'm so excited for this one.
Me too. Because it's brief, but man, it hits like a freight train.
It really does.
The entire text we're exploring today, for you listening, is just a title and a subtitle. That's it. 13 words in total.
13 words.
Ready? Here it is. The cycle of attraction. Why patterns repeat. Why you keep attracting the exact same type of person.
Wow.
Right? We're going to put those 13 words under a microscope today because hidden inside that phrasing is the blueprint for how we build and honestly often sabotage our own lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The very first premise it establishes challenges a massive cultural myth. It doesn't just say attraction. It says the cycle of attraction.
And that word cycle it's everything. Framing attraction as a cycle fundamentally alters how most of us have been taught to, view human connection.
How so?
Well, it takes a concept that is usually steeped in mysticism and romance, and it grounds it in mechanics.
Mechanics. I like that. I'm glad you brought up the mysticism, actually, because when we think of attraction, we usually think of it as this linear spark.
The lightning bolt.
The lightning bolt, exactly. The whole cultural narrative of Cupid's arrow or the cinematic meet cute, right?
Right.
You lock eyes across a crowded room, lightning strikes, and you walk a straight line off into the sunset.
Which is such a lovely idea, but...
But it's framed as an isolated event, like a singularity. Calling it a cycle strips away all that magic.
It really does, because a cycle isn't a lightning bolt.
No, if it's a cycle, it's less like a lightning bolt and more like a social media algorithm.
Oh, that's a brilliant comparison.
Yes. Think about it, right? You scroll through an app, you stop and watch a video of, people arguing in public for a few seconds too long, and suddenly your entire feed is just public freakouts.
Endless argument videos.
Exactly. The algorithm doesn't care if the video made you anxious or miserable.
Not at all.
It only cares that your nervous system engaged with it. It feeds you a cycle of the exact same dynamic.
And that algorithm analogy is remarkably accurate for what is happening on a neurobiological level in us.
Really? Like literally?
Literally. An algorithm is just a set of rules designed to maximize engagement based on past behavior, right?
Right.
Well, in human psychology, we call the engine driving this internal algorithm the attachment loop.
Okay, the attachment loop. Let's get into that.
So our earliest frameworks of what safety, love, and attention feel like, even if those early frameworks were chaotic or neglectful or smothering.
Even if they were bad, essentially.
Even if they were terrible. They create a physiological baseline. Your nervous system literally wires itself during childhood to recognize a specific type of emotional environment as home base.
Wow. Okay, but wait, let me push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
Are we saying people actively want to be miserable? Like, if someone grew up in a really volatile home, why would their internal algorithms seek out more volatility? That sounds completely counterintuitive to, basic human survival.
It does seem that way.
We're wired to avoid pain, aren't we?
Consciously, yes. Consciously, we are absolutely wired to avoid pain, but subconsciously, we are wired to seek the familiar.
Seek the familiar, okay.
To a developing nervous system, familiar danger is often preferable to unfamiliar safety.
Oh, wow. Wait. Familiar danger is preferable to unfamiliar safety. That's heavy.
It's how the brain survives. Unfamiliar safety feels suspicious. It feels like, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Like, this is too quiet, something's wrong.
Exactly. So the attachment loop kicks in. You go out into the adult world, and your nervous system is constantly scanning the horizon.
Looking for a match.
Right, but it is not standing for objective goodness or health or peace. It is scanning for that familiar emotional signature. The cycle begins with a psychological craving for that specific baseline.
And then comes the encounter.
The
so-called spark.
Yes. And what we culturally call the spark is very often just the click of two compatible puzzle pieces of unresolved trauma fitting together.
Oh, my God.
It's a cortisol spike misidentified as butterflies.
Wait. Say that again?
It's a cortisol spike misidentified as butterflies.
That reframing is just staggering. A cortisol spike misidentified as butterflies. I mean, I want you, the listener, to stop right now and just reflect on your own past connections.
It's a hard thing to look at.
It is, but think about your romantic history, or even like your deep friendships or recurring workplace dynamics. Are you viewing them as isolated, random events?
Like, I just had a run of bad luck.
Right. I just happened to work for 3 narcissistic bosses in a row by sheer coincidence.
Just bad luck.
Yeah. Or, based on this algorithm concept,
Yeah.
can you start to see them as part of a continuous loop?
Because the source text doesn't let us off the hook with bad luck.
No, it doesn't. It moves immediately into the unavoidable consequence of a cycle. It states boldly, why patterns repeat.
And moving from viewing your life as, a series of disconnected dots to seeing the actual line that connects them all.
Yeah.
It's a jarring paradigm shift. A pattern is not a coincidence. A pattern implies a recognizable sequence that can be mapped, tracked, and potentially predicted.
Mapped and tracked.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we look at this historically, Sigmund Freud called this Wiederholungszwang, or repetition compulsion.
Repetition compulsion. So, wait, Freud was looking at this exact same 13-word puzzle over a century ago.
He absolutely was.
What did he figure out?
Well, he observed that people who had experienced distressing or traumatic events, they often put themselves, completely and unconsciously, in situations where the event was likely to happen again.
Oh, why?
Because they would repeat the dynamic, hoping that this time they could master it. This time they could change the outcome.
Oh, I see. So it's an attempt to rewrite history.
Precisely.
Like, if my emotionally unavailable parent never validated me, I will subconsciously seek out an emotionally unavailable partner so I can finally win them over, and by proxy, heal the original wound.
That is the psychological motivation, yes. But there is also a purely biological reason why patterns repeat.
Biological, like in the brain.
Yes, and it comes down to cognitive load and energy conservation.
Okay, walk me through that.
So the human brain is an incredibly energy-intensive organ. I mean, it consumes about 20% of your body's energy despite being just a tiny fraction of your weight.
Right, it's a power hog.
Exactly. And because of this, the brain absolutely loves shortcuts. It has to. And a pattern is simply a cognitive shortcut.
So it's like a neurological path of least resistance.
That's exactly what it is.
Right.
Every time a specific neural pathway is used, the brain coats it in this fatty substance called myelin.
Myelin, okay.
Myelin acts like insulation on an electrical wire, right? It makes the signal travel faster and much more efficiently.
So it gets easier to do the more you do it.
Exactly. If you grew up learning how to walk on eggshells around, say, an unpredictable caregiver, that walking on eggshells neural pathway is heavily myelinated. It is a superhighway.
A superhighway of anxiety.
Right. Conversely, the pathway for communicating boundaries calmly and feeling secure, that might be an unpaved dirt road.
Oh, man.
It's overgrown. It's incredibly hard to navigate.
You know what it's like? It's like wandering into a dark room.
Okay, yeah.
You know there's a light switch somewhere on the far wall, but you also know that if you walk exactly 3 paces forward and 2 paces left, you can sit in the one chair you know is there. You're sitting in the dark, but at least you're not bumping into walls trying to find the light switch. You choose the dark because it requires way less energy than the unknown.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the tension between our conscious desires and our unconscious scripts.
Because consciously you want the light on.
Of course you do. But subconsciously, finding the switch requires too much energy. It requires vulnerability. So you sit in the familiar dark. If you know the rules of a toxic dynamic, like if you know exactly how to appease an angry partner or how to chase an avoidant one, your brain doesn't have to work hard to figure out what to do. You already have the script.
You've rehearsed it a million times.
Exactly. Healthy, stable dynamics. If you've never experienced them, they require a tremendous amount of conscious energy to navigate.
Because you don't know the rules.
You don't know the rules. It feels awkward. It feels clunky. So the brain defaults to the heavily myelinated superhighway, which paradoxically keeps you trapped in an exhausting cycle just to save short-term cognitive energy.
That is wild.
Okay?
Let's make this incredibly concrete. Let's invent a hypothetical listener for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll call her Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Right. So Sarah is a 32-year-old architect. She is brilliant, highly competent at her job. She manages a team of people, and she is universally respected in her field. She's a boss.
Got it.
But in her romantic life, Sarah has a very distinct pattern. For the last decade, she has exclusively dated men who eventually belittle her ambitions. Yep. Men who become threatened by her success and who emotionally withdraw whenever she needs support. And she is exhausted. She complains to her friends that she just has terrible luck with men.
Right.
But based on what we are discussing, Sarah isn't having bad luck. She is sitting in the dark chair.
She is absolutely sitting in the dark chair. Sarah's situation is a textbook example of the internal algorithm at work.
Break it down for me.
Consciously, the captain of her ship is saying, I want a supportive, equal partner. That is her conscious mind giving orders.
That's the light switch.
Right. But her engine room is run by a subconscious blueprint that equates love with having to prove her worth to someone who is withholding.
Oh, that's her familiar danger.
Exactly. So when she meets a man who is immediately supportive and emotionally available, her nervous system doesn't even register him as a romantic prospect.
Feels boring.
Yes, he's nice, but there's no chemistry. There is no cortisol spike. The algorithm just swipes past him because he doesn't fit the engagement criteria.
Because he doesn't trigger the repetition compulsion. There's nothing for her to master because the relationship isn't a puzzle to be solved. It's just healthy.
Precisely. It's just healthy. But when Sarah meets a man who is slightly dismissive, aloof, or subtly critical of her success,
her nervous system lights up.
The superhighway is activated. She feels that intense spark, which is actually just the alarm bells of familiar danger ringing.
Wow.
She enters the cycle. The pattern repeats, and a year later, she is once again wondering why she is with someone who makes her feel small.
Which brings us to the most provocative part of the source text, and this is where the language gets razor sharp. The text says, why you keep attracting. Notice what is conspicuously absent from that phrase.
What's missing?
It does not say why you keep choosing the exact same type of person. It says attracting.
Yeah.
That is a massive semantic distinction, and honestly, it's one that makes me a little uncomfortable.
It should make you uncomfortable.
Really? Why?
Because it forces a confrontation with our own agency. Look, choosing implies conscious, active selection. It implies you are walking up to a buffet and deliberately putting something on your plate.
Right. Choosing means Sarah walks into a room of 50 men, evaluates all of them objectively, points to the one emotionally withholding narcissist in the corner and says, yep, I'll take that one.
Which she isn't doing consciously.
Exactly. But attracting pushes us away from active selection and into the realm of passive magnetism. It suggests that Sarah isn't picking them out of a lineup. Rather, she is emitting a frequency that they are tuning into. But if we go down this road, aren't we bordering on victim blaming?
That's a very important question.
Like, if someone is mistreated or manipulated, we can't say they asked for it just because they have a certain psychological magnetism. We have to be very, very careful here.
We do, and it is a vital distinction to make. We absolutely must separate fault from agency.
Okay, let's separate them.
If someone mistreats you, that is 100% their fault, period. Yeah. Their behavior belongs to them.
Right.
However, your agency lies in understanding the mechanics of your own ecosystem. Attracting someone does not mean you are actively asking to be harmed.
What does it mean then?
It means you are generating a signal or lacking a defense that draws specific elements toward you. Think of a literal magnet.
Okay.
A magnet doesn't consciously choose iron filings.
No, it just sits there.
The magnet simply exists with a certain polarity, and the iron filings are compelled to attach to it. In human dynamics, this magnetism is almost entirely governed by our internal boundaries.
Okay, this is the crux of the issue, isn't it? Your external world is often a direct reflection of your internal boundaries.
Absolutely.
Let's really dig into that concept. Break down what an internal boundary actually is, because I think people usually confuse boundaries with walls.
They do. People often think a boundary is something you say to someone else, like, don't speak to me that way, or I won't tolerate this behavior.
Right, like setting a rule.
But those are external boundaries. And external boundaries are completely useless if they aren't backed up by internal boundaries.
So what's an internal boundary?
An internal boundary is your deeply held definition of what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. It is your foundational definition of self and your inherent worth.
Okay.
If your internal boundaries are porous, if you secretly believe you are unworthy of respect, or if your childhood taught you that love requires sacrifice and suffering, that internal belief system dictates the physical reality of your life.
So, going back to Sarah.
Let's go back to Sarah.
If her internal boundary dictates that she must earn love through overachieving and tolerating criticism, how does that translate to attracting the dismissive partner? She isn't like sending out a bat signal for toxic men, is she?
No, she isn't sending out a signal. Rather, she is failing to repel them.
Failing to repel them.
This is the concept of the porous boundary acting as a vacuum.
A vacuum. Okay, explain that.
When a person with healthy, rigid internal boundaries encounters a toxic individual, someone who tests limits, who subtly pushes, who takes without giving, the healthy person feels immediate discomfort.
Their alarm bells go off.
Exactly. They don't find the person charming. They find them intrusive. They naturally repel that person. The door is locked. The spark never happens.
The toxic person just bounces off the shield.
Bounces right off. But if your boundaries are porous, the toxic person tests the limit and they meet no resistance.
Give me an example of what that looks like on a date.
Okay. Say they make a subtly belittling joke on the first date. A person with healthy boundaries says, I didn't find that funny, and the date ends early.
Right. Good boundary.
But Sarah, with her porous boundaries, laughs uncomfortably and tries to prove the guy wrong by being overly accommodating. She absorbs the disrespect.
Oh, wow.
To the toxic person, Sarah is the path of least resistance. She has attracted him, not by calling out to him, but by failing to block him.
Because she let it slide.
Her lack of internal boundaries acts as a vacuum, and toxic dynamics absolutely abhor a vacuum. They rush right in to fill the empty space.
Wow. That completely shifts the visual for me. The magnetism isn't this like magical tractor beam pulling them from across the globe.
Not at all.
The magnetism is just the open door. You are simply the space where their behavior is allowed to exist unchecked.
That's exactly it.
That takes away the helplessness of, why does this always happen to me? And replaces it with an incredibly empowering, difficult question.
Which is?
What is the frequency I am emitting or the shield I am dropping that allows this to happen near me?
Yes. And that empowers you because you cannot control the existence of toxic people in the world.
We wish we could, but we can't.
But you can entirely control the state of your own vacuum. The source text drives this home with the word keep. Why you keep attracting.
Oh, right. It denotes a chronic condition, like relentless repetition.
A mistake is something you do once or twice. If you keep doing it, if it's a constant state of being, it means the underlying structure, the magnet itself, your internal boundary system, has not been modified.
Right.
And as long as the magnet remains unchanged, the attraction will continue unabated. I mean, you can change cities, you can change jobs, you can delete the dating apps and try to meet people in real life.
But you pack your magnet in your suitcase.
Exactly.
Wherever you go, there you are, and there your boundaries are.
Which perfectly sets up the final absolute phrase in our 13-word source text, the culmination of this entire cycle.
Let's hear it.
You keep attracting the exact same type of person.
Exact same type. The phrasing there is just so definitive. It's not similar people. It's not people with common traits.
Yeah.
The author uses absolute modifiers.
Exact same.
But we have to clarify what a type means here, right?
Mhm.
Because it's clearly not about superficial traits.
No, not at all.
Like, if Sarah dates a blonde musician who belittles her, and then later a brunette investment banker who belittles her, they look totally different on paper.
Superficial traits are completely irrelevant to the algorithm. The type being referred to here is a behavioral and emotional archetype.
An archetype.
It is a psychological profile that perfectly slots into that attachment loop we discussed earlier. It is the specific key that fits the lock of your unresolved wounds.
So it's about the dynamic, not the resume.
Precisely. In psychology, Carl Jung talked extensively about the concept of the shadow.
Wait, Jung's shadow.
Yeah.
Like the dark side of our personality.
Well, the unhealed, unacknowledged parts of our unconscious mind. And we often project our shadow onto others, or we seek out people who will essentially act out our shadow for us.
Oh, it's like casting a play. That's how I visualize this exact dynamic.
Tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. You, the individual, have written this incredibly complex, deeply ingrained script in your subconscious based on your early life experiences and unhealed wounds. You are the lead actor, but you can't put on the play alone. You need a co-star to run the dialogue with.
Right.
So unconsciously, you hold auditions. And the actors who show up keep changing. Their faces change, their jobs change, their backgrounds change. But the character they are required to play in your life remains entirely identical.
That is a phenomenal analogy. You are the casting director, and you are casting the role of the withholder or the critic or the project.
Yes, the project. That is such a common one.
Oh, incredibly common.
The person you need to fix so you can feel valuable and indispensable.
Let's run with that one for a second. Let's say your internal boundary system believes that you are only worthy of love if you are actively saving someone from themselves.
Right.
You will unconsciously hold auditions for people who are in crisis, who refuse to take responsibility for their lives, and who demand to be served.
Because they fit the script.
Exactly. And you will be entirely blind to the emotionally available, stable people because they don't fit the script. They don't need saving.
So they don't give you the opportunity to sacrifice yourself.
Right. So your brain doesn't even register them as a romantic possibility. But the moment someone walks into the audition who is chaotic, demanding, and self-destructive.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. You cast them immediately. You hand them the script.
You cast them, and the play begins again. The pattern repeats. The exact same type is simply the avatar required to run your specific cycle of attraction.
That explains so much. This is why you can date people who look entirely different and come from entirely different cultures yet. 6 months into the relationship, you find yourself sitting in your kitchen having the exact same argument.
In the exact same tone of voice.
Feeling the exact same profound sense of despair that you felt 3 years ago with a totally different person.
Because the actor changed, but the character was identical.
Because the script demanded it. Man, it's deeply sobering to realize that we are often the architects of our own repetitive heartbreak.
It's a very bitter pill to swallow.
But at the same time, I want to emphasize to you listening, recognizing this absolute repetition, realizing that you keep casting the exact same character, is the first, most critical step toward freedom.
Absolutely. It is the ultimate aha moment.
You cannot fire the casting director until you realize the casting director is you.
I love that. And that is the core value of this source text. It forces accountability, but it also offers a map out of the maze.
You can't fix what you can't see.
Exactly. You cannot break a pattern you do not acknowledge. By pointing out the cycle, the repetition, the passive attraction, and the identical nature of the type, the text provides a mirror.
A very clear mirror.
It asks you to stop looking at the sequence of failed relationships as random external events happening to you and start seeing them as an internal mechanism operating through you.
Okay, so the million-dollar question.
Let's hear it.
How do we rewrite the script? If we have this heavily myelinated superhighway in our brain that seeks out the toxic dynamic, and if we have porous internal boundaries that create a vacuum, how do we actually stop the cycle? We can't just wish it away.
No, you can't wish it away. We have to engage in what is essentially psychological physical therapy.
Psychological physical therapy. Okay, what's step one?
First, you have to consciously interrupt the algorithm. You have to stop engaging with the content it serves you.
So overriding the impulse.
Yes. When you feel that intense, immediate spark with someone who seems a little too mysterious, a little too aloof, or a little too chaotic, you have to recognize that as a warning sign, not a green light.
The cortisol misidentified as butterflies.
Exactly. And you have to learn to tolerate the discomfort of the unfamiliar.
Which means giving the boring person a chance.
Yes. You have to experience what it feels like to interact with someone who respects your boundaries.
But initially, that's going to feel wrong.
It'll feel completely wrong. Your nervous system will say, this isn't love, there's no anxiety here.
Right, I'm not panicked, so they must not be the one.
You have to sit with that lack of anxiety until your brain realizes that peace is actually safe.
Rewiring the superhighway.
Exactly. And secondly, you have to build the internal boundaries. You have to define your worth independent of your utility to others.
So knowing you're valuable, even if you aren't saving someone.
Yes. And as you build those internal walls, the vacuum disappears. You stop being the path of least resistance.
You stop holding auditions for the play you no longer want to star in.
Precisely.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of psychological ground today based on Just 13 words.
It's amazing how much depth is in there.
Let's try to weave this all back together for the listener. We started with the source text, the cycle of attraction, why patterns repeat, why you keep attracting the exact same type of person.
Right.
We unpacked how attraction is not a random lightning bolt, but a cyclical algorithm driven by our deepest attachment loops and early childhood conditioning.
We examined how these patterns repeat because our brains seek the familiar to conserve energy, relying on myelinated superhighways of known pain rather than risking the vulnerability of unknown safety.
Which brought us to Freud's repetition compulsion, the desire to master the unmastered trauma of our past. We look at the critical difference between choosing and attracting, realizing that our external world is a direct reflection of our internal boundaries.
A lack of boundaries doesn't just invite toxic dynamics. It acts as a vacuum that ensures they thrive, drawing in the very behaviors we consciously claim to hate.
And finally, we decoded the exact same type, not as a physical description, but as the necessary emotional co-star required to act out our subconscious scripts.
We explored how we unconsciously cast people to play out our unhealed wounds.
It all connects so seamlessly, the algorithm, the pattern, the vacuum, the archetype.
It really does.
And the value application here for you, the listener, is profound empowerment. This framework. It might sound intimidating at first.
It's heady stuff.
It might feel heavy to realize you have been complicit in your own repetitive pain. But it is actually the ultimate key to your freedom.
Absolutely.
Once you recognize that you are the central gravitational force in your own cycle of attraction, you stop viewing your relationship history as a string of terrible luck.
You start seeing it as a predictable, manageable pattern.
And what is predictable can be changed.
You can harness neuroplasticity to pave new, healthy pathways. You can heal the attachment loop. You can fortify your internal boundaries until the vacuum is completely sealed.
It takes work.
It takes a lot of work. It takes conscious effort to overcome the brain's desire for the familiar shortcut, but it is entirely within your control.
Because you own the magnet.
You own the magnet. And your external world will eventually, inevitably, reflect the new boundaries you set.
It has to.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought for you to take away today. We started by talking about that rigged compass, the one that keeps spinning you right back to the eye of the storm, right back to the exact same tree in the dark woods.
But if this deep dive has shown us anything, it's that the compass isn't reacting to the magnetic north of the planet. It's reacting to you.
You are the true north.
Exactly. So if your cycle of attraction acts as a magnet that constantly pulls in the exact same type of person, what happens to the magnet when you finally decide to change its polarity?
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.